This is the Simpit. I'm your host, Sean Cole, and welcome to today's edition of the Pitstop, where you are the real star of today's show because we are here to talk about sim racing news. And I noticed today is another one of those days that we are having small technical difficulties. I noticed my chat is not working. There is an update to our stream, and for some reason, the chat is not going into my project like it should. Let me try one thing real quick on that. And this actually kind of takes me to one of our stories of the day as well. Did that fix it? I don't think so. We're just going to have to go without chat on the stream, so I apologize that. People here live will be seeing what was talked about, and those who are watching it after the fact, unfortunately, will not be seeing the chat embedded on the video today, but I will get that resolved. And that actually takes me to one of our stories that we'll be talking about, or it reminds me of one of the stories. Not takes us, that would imply we're going there right now, but really unfortunate that we're having technical difficulties on that, and that this is 2 days in a row that I've had technical difficulties, each for different reasons, but I think there are similarities, and we'll get to that in just a moment. So, let's talk about today's sim racing news. Of course, if there is anything that you guys want to talk about, you please let me know in the chat. I am still watching the chat, I just can't see it on the video today, but I can still see it. I'm aware of what you guys are talking about. So, thank you for being here. Let's talk sim racing news, starting with, we talked about the Chili Bowl, we talked about the track coming to iRacing. That's the sim side of the story, and that's awesome. On the positive promotion for iRacing, positive promotion for sim racing, Kyle Larson actually won the Warren Cat qualifying night. So, the iRacing, where is it? The iRacing sprint car, little midget guy, with Kyle Larson, took home all of the that's not the video I saw earlier. Wait, is it? Sorry about that, you guys. No, this isn't it. So anyway, but congratulations to Kyle getting that iRacing car on, well, getting the award for the qualifying and getting some exposure to iRacing and to sim racing. And I'm sure this is making quite a big deal there, as I'm sure iRacing is promoting the whole concept that all the fans there watching it can be partaking in the same thing. So that's at iRacing Twitter feed. Congratulations to Kyle and to iRacing. Next up, WRC. Their next season of the esport begins on January 25th. So if this is something, there are going to be a lot of competitions, even if you don't have the ability to win. When you get into the esport level competitions and you look at those ladders, I think they are the most cutthroat. I think iRacing has the most cutthroat overall online racing format. But when it comes to the most cutthroat competitions, it's the esport. It's because that's where people are going to throw everything they've got, often at just one event. So go check this out. Even if you can't win, go play. Go see where you are on the list. I read an article today about somebody who's talking about being in the top 50 out of 7,000 drivers. What an accomplishment. Being in the top 200 out of 7,000 drivers is quite an accomplishment. You know, you think if there are 7,000 people in the competition, if you're in the top 700, you're in the upper 10% overall. So go check out WRC 7 eSport beginning January 25th. Next up, Alienware has now put their name on an eSports stadium that's going to hold it's a 8,000 square foot training facility, they're calling it. So as we've seen multiple stories over the last couple months of various companies getting in, bigger and bigger arenas and venues being built for gaming, esport in general. We've seen how, I think at this point you could actually make the argument that racing is starting to get, I don't like that being up on my screen. Sim racing is starting to get more market share of the esport world as esport is continuing to grow. So this is, you know, just another step in that direction. I do not think that iRacing drivers are inherently the best drivers in sim. So that's my quick answer to that question I saw scroll across the screen. This is another article, and the reason I'm saying it, because we've really already covered this, that Dorniden is into the ERace of Champions, the E-Rock competition where a couple of sim racers, and so this is why I'm talking about it. Just another article, this at Eurosport.com, talking about the sim racers going into the E-Rock, going into the final version of the real Rock. So you've got Dornadin, you've got Rudy Van Buren, Brandon Lay, Kevin Luan, and Enzo Bonito. Those guys are going to go, and they're going to do, and this is the reason I'm bringing it back up, because the five virtual racers will compete both on the new Rock track in racing game Assetto Corsa. Let's hope and cross our fingers that we can get that and maybe create our own leaderboard. And in real Rock competition cars. So, it sounds like the 5 virtual racers are actually going to get in the real cars as part of their challenge to see which 2 of them goes on to the real event. I could still be, this is all, and the reason I'm talking about it is because the details trickle out on these things. We don't often get all of the details up front, but, you know, all of these guys are going to get a chance to run and meet and race against potentially David Coulthard, Juan Montoya, Tom Christensen, Peter Solberg, Lando Norris, Ryan Hunter-Ray, Joseph Newgarden, and Helio Castroneves. So quite an opportunity for these guys, and maybe not the biggest cash prize in sim racing, but it is one of the biggest prizes in sim racing for sure. Just reading some of your guys' comments. David, that's a whole other show in its own, and on each independent person to do it independently, I think. I don't know if I want to have a all jump on show like that, but interesting idea. We talked the other day about Avid Chronic Racing signing a contract. Here's an article at Sim Racing Observer, which is becoming one of my favorite sites in sim racing all of a sudden. Jake Sperry. And apparently Iberica, which has been one of the most dominant sim racing teams out there, has simultaneously lost like 10 men. And we're talking some big names. Nestor Garcia, Ade Koba, Pablo GoPro Lopez. They lost a big chunk of their team all at once. And you can go read the article at Sim Racing Observer to hear his opinion on what played out and how it played out. Your upper echelon teams are going to be recruiting the best drivers on Earth. You have some sim racing teams that have already established themselves as part of the ranks of the esport world. And, you know, again, I've said this too. As esport becomes more professional, a lot of us, and when I say us, average sim racers, even average sims and other things, are going to get skipped over. And what has always been our world and our arena might be dictated by money, sponsorship, and big names, and all of a sudden a team as great as Iberica could lose men because maybe those guys are going to esport teams that already have a slot in some of those big competitions. And those competitions are going to be able to dictate which teams are even considered the real esport teams. So as much as this growth is wonderful, to me there is a little hint of scariness to it, because they, with money, can dictate everything about our days forward from today on. And that could be an injustice to sim racing as a whole. Anyway, that's why when I cover stories like this, part of the story is at face value. What's going on at Iberica? What's going on that 10 drivers all leave? It also makes me think about contracts and Avid Chronic. And as this becomes more professional, we, the teams, we, the team managers, we, the drivers, might have to start taking it more and more seriously. So contracts and things like that, and a contract would need to mean something very strong. But anyway, go check it out. Check out Sim Racing Observer. Between this and their power rankings, they're definitely covering a great angle on sim racing. This is a funny story, and I'm not going to dwell on this very long other than a couple of things. When I was a child, Guinness Book of World Records came out once a year, and it was a big, big deal. And it was like this thick. You always had the two fat twins riding like Honda 50s on the back cover. And back then, the world record happened so infrequently, and there were so few of them that it was a big deal. Now it's like getting a patent. If you can make it up on paper, you can get a Guinness Book of World Record for it. But anyway, BMW did a big promotional thing, refueling and doing some of the longest 1- and 2-car drifts ever done, like marathon hours-long drifts and things like this on a wet surface. Obviously promotional. Obviously one of those situations where they pretty much just made up their own thing and brought Guinness out so that they could actually get their Guinness Book of World Record, which they got. You know, Guinness certified it. But again, it's sort of like just creating something that's never been done, and you can call it a world record. Not quite the same as the old 800-page book days, but congratulations to BMW. It has nothing to do with sim racing, but I thought that was cool. If you are planning on going to CES, which ends at the end of this week, I believe Friday is the last day, and it is a industry trade show, so you can't just go to CES. But if you are going to CES, somehow got yourself in there, there is a cool competition to be won. So you can go run some Gran Turismo Sport at the BMW booth, and 15 people are going to win a prize of driving at the BMW driving school experience. So they'll basically go from the show on January 12th to the driving experience and get their day in a car. So that can be very cool. Go check that out if you're going to be at CES. Next topic. AMD's second generation of the Rise N CPU are coming out in April. So this news also comes out of CES. 8 years ago, I was a total AMD guy. And the main reason for it was that AMD could rival Intel speeds at such a lower price point. And that was the case for a long, long time. And then at some point, I finally switched back over to Intel and kind of haven't looked back since. I've heard great things about the Rise N chipset. I have not used or tested one, but it's the first thing that AMD had done in years that had people starting to take notice. So let's really hope that this version of the chip is great for us and is less expensive than an Intel product. It'd be great to see the prices of everything in computers come down. At this point, even video cards, they've managed to kind of creep their way back up with new introductions of kind of the same cards, but a couple extra bonuses on it now that it's like in the next gen of that card. Anyway, so that's cool. And this is the last topic of the day for me, other than just telling some Simpit news. And this goes back to what we were talking about, our technical difficulties. This goes back to a story that we were talking about a few shows ago about internet security and how chipsets are now the next phase of being at risk. It used to be your software getting it in your operating system, but now it's to the point where it can get in your chips, in your BIOS, and really make a mess of things and slow down your overall computer. And as the companies start to go after these threats, we could actually see a slowdown in internet, because that's kind of the point of attack. And this is all in theory. Anyway, NVIDIA has just announced that they have security updates that specifically go after the Meltdown Spectre. I don't know, is it a virus, or is it just I don't know if it's technically a virus as much as an intrusion of sorts. But this literally is a chipset type problem and issue. And NVIDIA is kind of getting to being one of the first to really go after it. And other chipsets, this is the kind of stuff, I hate to say it, that could even get into like cell phones. I heard Apple has an issue on this same level. You know, it's one thing when it's the operating system. That's one point of attack. And it's easy for us to be responsible users and prevent ourselves from getting viruses. When it can go into your chipset, though, it's a whole different ball game. So anyway, don't know if this is going to start slowing things down. I'm hoping that we get ahead of it. This is an area, and I don't want to really get political with the show, but you know, there's always been blue collar crime and then white collar crime, and here in America, for some stupid reason, there seems to be more focus on blue collar crime than white collar crime. And you know, blue collar crime is a guy robbing a liquor store. Not to say that that's nothing big. But when you compare that to what the guys on Wall Street do criminally, and now we're talking millions of dollars, not a cash register full of money, and done to masses, not to an individual. And I'm not trying to differentiate any kind of crime at all, but this new virtual collar crime, sim crimes, and viruses, and security breaches on that level. It's sort of a joke, the way our country, at least, I don't know about others, but it's a joke to me what they're doing and how they're handling it right now. This is a massive problem, whether you're talking about banks issuing out, having breaches to give up social security numbers and credit card numbers, whether you're talking about potential election mishandling, whatever you're talking about. When you get into the world of cyber crimes, I kind of think, where are the cops? Where are the police on this? Where is the massive outrage of the people? But I'll tell you what, if this starts messing with my computer when I'm just doing my regular everyday stuff, I'm going to be pissed off. Excuse my language. So go get them, NVIDIA. And, our governments need to start getting a lot more aggressive on this. So I didn't even know I was going to turn that direction on this. But it just makes me think it's just this next level of crime that I think is going to prove, in the end, if it hasn't already, if you were to put a ladder of crime, blue collar is this much magnitude on impact on the earth, white collar crime is this much magnitude and impact on the earth, and to me, cyber crime is going to be a whole other level, and it makes me angry that it's not being looked at all. Where is the sim racing in this rant? Mikhail, the sim racing in this rant is, if tomorrow I wake up and it's more than just a technical difficulty, but it's an attack on my chipset, and my computer's dead in the water because of this cyber crime BS that's starting to get out of hand, quite honestly. So that's where the relevance to sim racing is, or the fact that it could, massive updates protecting chipsets could play a role in how fast our computers and our internet works. That's an aspect that could affect our sim racing. If we're just getting into the topic of government and internet, well, here in America, this whole net neutrality stuff that's going on, it could mean that iRacing might not have enough bankroll to buy the fast lane of bandwidth and Amazon can. And as much as I don't love Amazon. As much as I respect Amazon, I don't think they deserve a fast lane of internet, and my sim racing, iRacing little company in Massachusetts can't afford. So that's the relevance, is I think it's all intertied. And if you think about me and my style and the way I look at things and talk about them here on the show, that's exactly the diversion. When I look at the story about Iberica, it's not just that they lost guys. It's, where did these guys go? And why? Is there something happening in sim racing like esport pulling us in new directions? So I'm always looking for that other angle. Maybe not the direct, just like we read it here in the title version. So anyway, I hope you like my diversion there. I hope you don't mind my rant. It was absolutely a rant. So I don't do a whole lot of that on the show. But hopefully you don't mind. And if you guys have different opinions, hey, let me hear it in the comments. Send me an email, whatever you got to do to let your voice be heard. So, that's going to do it for today's straight up news, sim racing news mostly. Let's move on to just a few inside topics here at the Simpit, starting with, at 10 o'clock, Mitchie is going to be my crew chief once again. We're going to get him in as my actual spotter this time, not just sitting in spectator mode. And we are going to go to the next level. I did a little more homework last night. We'll see if that paid off or not. And we are going to just take it one step further in preparation for the Roar before the 24. I will set up a hosted room that'll start at about 10 o'clock, maybe a little beforehand. So if you guys want to jump in there and prepare for the race, we'd love to have you out there as well. Beyond that, that's today at 10 o'clock. Today at 6 o'clock, we will have our Attack the Track practice for Road America, the second race of the season in our McLaren F1 GTR season on sim racing system. That will be at 6 o'clock. I'm going to be switching from sim to sim today, which always puts a little learning curve when you switch. But we will take that time to get up to speed, see what we can learn, Heck, I guess Psy already has a setup out there on the setup market, so we'll probably start there and just see what kind of improvements we can make. That is really going to do it for today. We'll be back for those 2 shows. We'll be back tomorrow with another pit stop with tomorrow's sim racing news. I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for being part of the pit crew, because again, we get to talk. You guys get to let your opinion be heard as well. I want to thank you guys who send me in some of these great stories, because it just makes the Simpit pit stop that much more entertaining each and every day. This is the Pit Stop. I'm Sean Cole, and I'll see you on the track.